Good afternoon. Welcome to the third and final webinar in the ICIT Fall Briefing Series, Crossing the Digital Divide. Our subject for today is Walking the Line, Balancing Innovation and Governance. First, I'd like to thank our partner, DLT, a tech data company, for co-hosting this event. The Institute for Critical Infrastructure Technology, ICIT, is the nation's leading cybersecurity think tank, providing objective, nonpartisan research, advisory, and education in legislative, commercial, and public sector cybersecurity stakeholders. We facilitate a robust platform of programs, knowledge sharing, cutting edge research, and publications that support the exchange of ideas and provide a forum for cybersecurity leaders to engage in the meaningful discourse needed to effectively support and protect our nation's critical infrastructures. ICIT programs and initiatives support cybersecurity leaders and practitioners in all 17 if you include election security, defined by the Department of Homeland Security, and can be leveraged by other community members impacted by digital adversaries, including small and medium business owners, academia, and other industries impacted by digital threats. With the ever-evolving cyber landscape, innovation and transformation are at the forefront of leaders' minds. However, at the same time, there is an increased focus on cybersecurity governance to ensure the development and compliance of minimum standards or best practices. As a result, leaders are tasked with balancing between differentiating their organizations with innovation and conforming with governance expectations. In this Thought Leader webinar, we will hear from Ann Dunkin, CIO for the Department of Energy, on balancing between compliance and optimizing security. In addition, Ann will discuss what extent organizations should focus on compliance with standards compared with developing state-of-the-art solutions and innovations. Ann Dunkin is the current Chief Information Officer of the U.S. Department of Energy. Before joining DOE, she was the Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer for state and local government at Dell. Prior to joining Dell, Ms. Duncan was the CIO for the County of Santa Clara, California. Ms. Duncan also served in the Obama administration as the Chief Information Officer of the United States Environmental Protection Agency and as the Chief Technology Officer for the Palo Alto Linked School District. She also held a variety of leadership at Hewlett-Packard, and she is a published author, most recently of the book Industrial Digital Transformation, and sought-after speaker on the topic of technology modernization, digital services, and organizational transformation. Ms. Duncan holds a master's and a bachelor's degree in industrial engineering, both from Georgia Institute of Technology. She is also a licensed professional engineer in California and Washington. Thank you very much for joining us, Ann. I'll turn it over to you for your keynote.
Thank you, Joyce. Good afternoon, everyone. Joyce, I'd like to thank you and the leadership team of ICIT for inviting me to speak today and to have the opportunity to discuss the challenges of fostering innovation while balancing compliance and security. Whether in the public or private sector, innovation offers meaningful opportunities to streamline processes, solve previously intractable problems, and transform services, all while keeping the users of technology safe and secure. As a nation, and as a world for that matter, we've become highly digitally dependent. The fabric of our economy, national security, and personal lives has all become deeply reliant on cybersecurity. However, this new digital dependency creates risks at an unprecedented scale that can threaten national security, private enterprises, and individual rights. I need to enunciate better today. We must be diligent agents to ensure this newest change is a positive one. We also know the speed of technology development will continue to present opportunities for our adversaries. The SolarWinds attack, the Colonial Pipeline attack, and other events and ransomware attacks are recent proof of that, but it should not deter us from leveraging technology to better serve the public. I think this is an exciting time for the government and for the Department of Energy. We have the opportunity to think big with our IT and mission objectives, even as we work within the federal structures that govern our budgets, our portfolio management, our hiring, and our technology standards. And of course, as we engage with the rich environment of reporting requirements and remain ever vigilant to cybersecurity threats. So I'm really thrilled to have the opportunity to discuss with you how we can bring all this together and make it work. How can we simultaneously stay within while thinking outside the box and balance compliance and innovation? So you heard a little bit about my background already. I will not dive too deeply into this, but there are some points I want to make. I've worked both in public and private sectors over the years. I've been back and forth between them multiple times. And as you gathered, I'm an engineer. While I was at Hewlett Packard, I learned a lot about how to build printers and how to build printers well and how to design printers. And I worked on factories that create HP products and worked on getting those products to market. At some point, I got a little tired of trying to sell more ink and toner. And it was really time for the next challenge. And that was when I became CIO of the Palo Alto School District. And I will share that there is no lack of challenge in setting an IT agenda and managing an organization in a school district where all the parents really thought, or at least many of the parents thought, that they could do my job if they had a few extra hours in their week. So in 2015, I was offered the opportunity to join the EPA as the Chief Information Officer, and that was my first federal government role, as is pretty obvious from that background. And it allowed me to apply myself to a very important mission, and a mission that's much broader than one group of kids. But water and air really aren't very good at understanding national boundaries. So really, EPA dealt with global problems. And I also had the opportunity to work with amazing, dedicated professionals. The federal government is full of just amazing, really deeply committed people. And those folks taught me a great deal about how the federal government works. And I started to learn more about the complexities of federal budget cycles, continuing resolutions, procurement rules, vendor protests at a much higher level than we saw in local government, records requirements, accessibility requirements, and other rules that really make the federal mission space different from the private sector or even other parts of the public sector. But as I said before, what really impressed me was how deeply civil servants cared about their mission and the protection of the American way of life and preserving our environment for the next generation. So since leaving the EPA, I was at Santa Clara County and then at Dell and back at DOE, and I'm thrilled to be back and be able to support innovation in public service once again. And it's really humbling to be part of such a diverse and vibrant agency as the Department of Energy. The department is known for its innovative role in transforming the nation's energy systems, securing leadership in clean energy technologies, pursuing world-class science and engineering, and enhancing nuclear security through defense, non-proliferation, and environmental efforts. It's an incredibly broad and important mission for our country. These worthy missions are supported by a strong tradition of innovation in cybersecurity. The Department of Energy is a catalyst behind a generation of new technologies to meet cyber threat challenge, so the cyber threat. Our national laboratories have accomplished groundbreaking work on the cyber front that ensures U.S. cutting-edge technologies need to defend against those who would seek to do our country harm. And as a department CIO, my responsibilities include leading IT modernization and digital transformation, cybersecurity, cyber workforce development, and privacy issues for DOE. We also support securing the critical infrastructures through the responsibilities and assets of the national labs and the power marketing administrations, which you may not know, power marketing administrations generate and sell a tremendous percentage of the power that is used in this, electric power that's used in this country. So the speed of innovation in IT alone is breathtaking enough that it's tempting to think that technology holds the key to our success. We are seeing emerging developments in artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, bots, digital twins, and large-scale data analytics that open a world of possibilities and questions as to what will be next. But transformation requires much more than technology. In fact, I would argue that technology is the easy part. It requires imagination, vision, and the ability to transform culture, processes, and technology to achieve desired results. I think we can also agree that change truly has become the only constant, that every time we think it can't accelerate further and faster, it does. And even saying that, we are in a unique time right now where there isn't a reliable status quo to refer to anymore. And every time we think we have found a status quo, we get an often unpleasant surprise like we have this week with the Omicron variant. And I feel now like I truly am in a science fiction movie when we're now talking about Omicron. So during the last 20 months, we've all faced unprecedented challenges in our efforts to deliver optimal IT services in a primarily virtual environment while balancing security and compliance requirements. Throughout it all, we continue to stay focused on speed and agility, bearing in mind that great IT services enable organizations to move at mission speed. The pandemic created increased visibility for our work in IT and shifted some of our objectives, but ultimately, we were able to maximize results by prioritizing secure service delivery to our customers. Government can, in fact, do things fast. Seeing the rapid shift to telework is invigorating in the context of considering both innovation and modernization efforts, and is a real tribute to the work of our federal teams and our private sector partners who supported them. What the experience of the past 2 years shows is how much government can do when you take constraints away. While many of these constraints have returned as we head towards our new normal, we must all work to maintain the velocity we've achieved during the last 2 years. Furthermore, we cannot rely on individual project teams to each figure this out on their own. One team simply cannot provide everything needed for successful modernization. We need to scale the tools, practices, and culture that enable transformation across the federal enterprise. Low-code platforms, DevSecops pipelines, and rapid ATO processes that assist with deployments are critical to our success, as this can only be achieved by scaling technology, processes, and culture across the enterprise. Internship and fellowship opportunities that bring the latest ideas from classrooms and industry onto our teams. Shared services that can be leveraged across systems and agencies to provide common microservices. These are some of the plays that we need to run to successfully scale innovation. At DOE, we're standing up an innovation project to identify additional critical strategies or plays for scaling IT innovation from standalone success stories to common government culture. And I want to call out something we should all be leveraging right now, and that's momentum. Federal IT has never been pointed to as a touchstone for flexibility, adaptability, and innovation. However, the last year and a half has shown what we can accomplish in a crisis. Who would have thought that our IT communities could have pivoted the government from a traditional brick and mortar structure to an almost complete telework environment, both in technology and improved cultural acceptance, within days? We cut a Gordian knot, and we did it because there was no other choice. And we were allowed to both think inside and be outside the box. And that momentum is continuing as the vision of a long-term hybrid environment becomes more of a likelihood. As many of you know, virtual meeting tools have become a mainstay of government telework, or maybe I should say as you all know, and we're all on those right now. And while it does allow for collaboration across agencies, it does not do so with the same granularity as intra-agency. We need cross-agency as well as intra-agency virtual collaboration. For that reason, OMB is taking a whole of government approach to collaboration, and CIOs from across the enterprise are working together to open up all of our collaboration platforms so that people can schedule, share, and meet across the government as seamlessly as they do across their own work groups. The first CIOs to begin this process quickly realized that they needed to address not only technical, but procedural, cultural, and mission enablement issues to ensure rapid buy-in to the federation process. Processes and practices can be much trickier to address than technology issues. They are put in place as guardrails, often to ensure uniformity, fairness, efficiency, or to guard against risk. But when these legacy processes stood as an obstacle to rapid federation, the project team looked at alternatives that kept the guardrails while removing the obstruction. When one organization is working on national security issues and another is collaborating with scientists around the world, this stage is set for conflicts. However, the CIOs were able to work through their issues and create a set of standards that all departments can adopt. They're able to stay within the box while thinking outside the box. While I may sound like I want to break down all the barriers, and to some extent I do, those of you who know me know how frustrated I can get with the rules, I would caution organizations not to discount the role of good governance in enabling practical innovation, and not to consider compliance and innovation mutually exclusive. On the contrary, at its best, governance can create guardrails for your team and help delegate decision-making to the lowest possible level. At DOE, from a governance perspective, mission requirements come from mission owners, and our governance model recognizes that fact. Our recommendations and decisions are informed by mission requirements, business analytics, and technical insights. Our investment decisions are based on needs and value to the enterprise and to the nation, cost, manage risks, and alignment with policy. Moreover, our aim is to be transparent and bring in the best minds from across the DOE enterprise to work on our challenges, including our cyber challenges. This robust governance provides the necessary guardrails for our workforce to carry out their duties by providing a clear understanding of mission goals, leadership buy-in, and support. Strong governance means your team knows where they can focus and when they can focus entirely on delivering results versus what kind of challenges require further discussion. And then they know who and where to direct inquiries for decisions to be made. When your team knows they're empowered to make decisions and supported and encouraged to take well thought out risks, they will have the freedom to think outside the box and deliver new solutions. Our traditional governance bodies are not the only guardrails that federal CIOs work with. No CIO is going to say we need more oversight. But OMB guidance, audits, legislation, executive orders, or binding operational directives all play a part in focusing our efforts and deliberately evaluating our progress. It is challenging when some of those requirements conflict with each other, and many are delivered without funding. But regardless, they do add value. And I will share, as having been a CIO for a county, there were times when I really wished I had OMB or the president sending me an order to do something that I couldn't convince anyone they should do, and I knew it was the right thing to do. So these things do add value. Ultimately, as in many situations, success for us will depend upon finding a balance between caution and confidence and between process and progress. In short, we need to reevaluate our conception of risk and compliance to see that they are not in tension, but in fact, if properly understood, they can reinforce each other. And in combination, then they can make us better at what we do. As a department CIO and the senior cybersecurity official, I'm faced with this dual challenge of promoting innovation and strong cybersecurity posture on a daily basis. My goals are to foster innovation, protect our assets, reduce cost, improve interoperability, scale capacity to match demand, lower operational costs, and establish the bedrock for future enterprise capabilities. At the conclusion of today's discussion, I hope we will all return to our agencies with much food for thought. I would like to thank you again for the work you do and for letting me share some learnings with you from my experiences today. I hope you all found something this week to bring back to your missions, or today, to bring back to your missions. And I look forward to more future conversations on understanding how transparency and accountability can support innovation and transformation within an organization. And I'm looking forward right now to talking with Joyce more about this. And I know we're going to answer some questions together, and then we're going to be able to field some audience questions as well, I think. So, Joyce.
Thank you so much, Ann. That was great. Thank you. We appreciate your taking the time out of your very busy schedule to chat with us today, because this is an important topic. We have found that in this area, the book, of course, and here's the book that you co-authored, um, Industrial Digital Transformation, it states that this is not a competitive advantage, that this is a way of life and critical to survival. It is implied that this is not a take it or leave it option. Why do you feel that way?
Well, I think, what we've seen is that, there's lots of cliches about it, but it's basically transform or die, right? We cannot, it's a little different in the government because we don't die as an organization, right? The government will be there no matter what. The question is it effective or not effective? And if you go to the private sector, you transform or your company goes away. We can't continue to operate in the old way we used to do things. And so if you look at the government, one of the things that has happened during the pandemic, but was going on before that, is people were looking at how the private sector operated, how the private sector was transforming, and I can get almost anything online, right? Just about anything. So why can't I go get my building permit online? Why can't I go, arrange to have my rental unit inspected online? In fact, why can't I have the inspector see me walk around with my camera and do that, right? Why does it have to be the way it is? So government's been under tremendous pressure to make that change, to become digital, and to do it in a way that is not simply taking the workflows that were on paper and putting them online, but truly transforming the experience of how citizens interact with government. And the pandemic just ramped that up. So, you probably would have been laughed out of the room if you said, "Hey, I want to have the building inspector inspect my building by me walking around with my phone and showing him the electrical panel." Well, guess what counties were doing after the pandemic? They're doing that. He's like, "I'm not going in that house. Show me on
Hmm.
your phone." We had, I love to tell the story about Alameda County, where they went from no process to a process to have weddings online over the weekend. And they bought the software they needed to accept payments, to process marriage licenses, to collect all the documents, and to perform ceremonies online. And, from Friday to Monday, they were doing that. And, under normal circumstances, it would have taken months for the board of supervisors just to decide to let them do it, much less
Yeah.
to get it done. So I think that for the private sector, it's been an imperative, and now for the public sector, people just look at the public sector and say, "No, this is how we expect you to operate." And if you want to, have constituencies who support you, who fund you, then you're going to have to change.
And that is unique because you're absolutely right. There is an expectation from the stakeholders and the American public. I mean, they're used to getting everything online, particularly now that the pandemic. I think that this is going to exacerbate the situation, and the customers are going to demand that
Mhm.
that digital experience going forward. They're not going to, take with you know waiting in line and waiting weeks and going to fill out applications, et cetera. It just won't work anymore.
Yep, exactly.
So following up on this question, do you think that the pandemic has definitely amplified the need and urgency for digitization in our critical infrastructures, all of them? I mean, not
Mhm.
just energy, but now agriculture and healthcare and everything else.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that we've identified, first of all, places within the government where we need to be more digital or to upgrade what might be a digital experience already. And some of that's driven by the pandemic. Some of it's driven by modern technology. Some of it's driven by climate change, right? So we need to modernize our grid, as an example. And the traditional grid is basically designed for one-way traffic,
Right.
right? It's not designed for two-way traffic. Well, guess what? There's two-way traffic on the grid now. My house in California, unfortunately not the one I'm living in, but the one I have in California, has solar panels and batteries. And and it's optimized. When rates are high, it sends power back to the grid. Right? When rates are low, it stores power in the batteries. And that's two-way traffic in the grid, and smart meters and all of those devices on the grid mean that you need to be able to support two-way traffic. You need to be able to support monitoring and securing all those devices, right? If we have every meter on the street is Wi-Fi enabled, or I should say 5G enabled in the future, you need to be able to read those meters. You need to be able to secure those meters and not have someone attack those meters.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a tremendous amount of modernization that has to happen in all of our critical infrastructure sectors, not only to improve the customer experience, to be more efficient, but also to secure the grid, right? There's just tons and tons of examples of where this modernized, smarter set of critical infrastructure also becomes much more at risk because you're using tons of OT in that, and you have to secure that. And we've historically not been very good at securing OT. So
Yeah.
tremendous amount of modernization in our critical infrastructure that has to be done.
Great. Now, but you know, when we're talking about critical infrastructures and we're talking about the grid and other things, we're talking about basically disruption. So must current processes be disrupted to achieve true transformation?
So that's an interesting question. I think generally yes, because what we start with, right, is that technology is not the answer to transformation.
Mm.
What people, processes, culture, those are the answers to transformation. And if we simply digitize or transform our existing process, or digitize, excuse me, our existing process without changing it, we often have a bad process that's digital, as opposed to a transformation of that process. And then you have a new modernized process, right? Here's the simplest example that I can give you of that. So you have a document that you route for approval, right? And I can take that and I can digitize it by routing it for approval. And that's an obvious thing, and people do it all the time. Or I can take that document, I can digitize it, and then I can set it up so that it's available to all the people who need to look at it and approve it at once. And there may be some gates. You may say, well, all these things have to be done before this person. But there's probably no reason that, for example, a building plan, that building plan, if there are 6 inspectors, all 6 of those inspectors can look at the plan at once. I don't need to route it to them one by one, but if I digitize my existing process, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to route that to them one by one. And so instead of having the total process time be the longest inspector, it's the sum of all the inspectors.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's the most basic example that I could give you of why processes should change when we digitize them, is because we can make them far more efficient in our new world than they were in their old way.
Absolutely. In your presentation, and you mentioned ransomware and the SolarWinds attack. Do you think that this response to the pandemic and rapid changes needed to continue our mission has made agencies more vulnerable? And what needs to be done to be more proactive in 2022 instead of reactive as we are in 2021?
Well, first of all, I think we are still reactive, but I think we continue to find ways to be more proactive. And I think that will continue. There's a couple things, right? One is certainly sending everybody home created risks, right? Because, instead, now let's be clear. We know that the idea that, the network is this hard shell and there's a soft GUI inside, that's been gone for a long time. But you certainly were more secure when all the endpoints or most of the endpoints were sitting inside your network, as opposed to now, you've got my network, which I think is not weak, right? I'm not inviting a hacker to test me and tell me how secure it is, but I don't have the default password on my router, for example, right? Now, but I could go to my colleague's house and they've got the default password in their router and they've got it wide open. Their neighbors are in there using their router. Who knows what's going on, right? They're running that Comcast hotspot off of their router that Comcast tries to put on your router. So there's all this stuff that is totally out of our control now because people are at home. We just sort of say, and I don't want to make it sound like it's a hope and a prayer, because it's not. We say use the VPN tunnel. We're going to secure your endpoint. We're going to secure the tunnel, and we're going to, try and make it as secure as possible. But that is certainly less secure than having people at the office. And then it's carried on from there that then they're at, grandma's house, or they're at the place in Cabo they decided to rent for 6 months because they're not going back to the office. Or, we have researchers at DOE that are in other countries because they're foreign nationals and they've gone back to those countries to work during the pandemic. Because remember, we have an open science mission in addition to our national security mission. So that array of things certainly adds risk into our ecosystem by sending everybody home. And then we're standing up way more citizen-facing services, not at DOE in particular, but at other departments and agencies across the government, because people couldn't come in. We tell a story about Alameda over the weekend doing this. I don't know how secure that was when they did it over the weekend. I'm sure it is now because they've had a year and a half. But the day they put it up, I don't know how secure that was. There are people loading up services all over the place quickly, trying to get things done quickly. The faster you're trying to go, and the less you have processes that are designed to make you go fast, the more likely you are to have problems, which is one of the reasons why we need to build those processes, low code development platforms and DevSecops pipelines and ATO processes that are streamlined so people can go fast and be secure at the same time. And that's been exacerbated by the pandemic because we've just had to go fast. And so if you gotta go fast, you need to figure out how to go fast and be secure.
Yeah, and it puts us in an area where we have to think, build, and operate all at the same time.
Yes, it really does. It's like you don't get, it's like going from waterfall to agile, right?
Yes.
So you used to get to do this, and then this, and then this, and then we say, oh no, we're going to do them all at once.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. Right? We're going from waterfall to agile.
Yes, yes, exactly. So, given the broader scope, the broad scope within DOE, the national laboratories, the facilities, and the list goes on, uh, you all excel at physical security. So, what are some of the strategies you have used to integrate your cyber and physical security plans?
Yeah, so that is to your point. We have power generation facilities, we have nuclear facilities. We have a lot of things that require a lot of security, and so the big challenge is these cyber physical systems, and it's been a big focus on the entry points to those. So what are the ways from a cybersecurity standpoint that a bad guy could get into a physical system? And so we've tried to make sure that we secure, we have a lousy history, and I don't mean at DOE, I just mean as a society of
Hmm.
securing IoT, right? I was talking about
Yeah,
routers. People install all sorts of stuff in their house and never think about it. I mean, oh, I
yeah.
got an Alexa, I got an alarm system, all this stuff is on your network, right?
Hmm.
And we did the same thing. You have we all know about the famous hack that they got in through the HVAC system, right?
Yeah.
There are tremendous number of ways that physical systems are not secured because we just didn't think about it. It wasn't technology or it wasn't IT, but it's on the network. If it's connected to a network, it's a risk. And so, there's two things, right? One is trying to secure all those devices, all the IoT devices, and to understand what's in them, right? So when you start looking at operational technology, there are, people will buy a piece of operational technology and not even realize that there is IT in it, right? Again,
Hmm.
it's that,
Hmm.
oh, you mean this thing's got an ability to phone home for service? Well,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So understanding what actually is in the equipment, right? Making sure that that is secure, that it is tightened down, so that people can't access it, and then figuring out what your interface points are between your IT network and your OT network, or your OT systems, and making sure that that's secure. Those are some of the key things that we're doing at DOE. We also put a lot of attention to supply chain, right? Where was this equipment? Right? Who's touched it?
Hmm.
Who owns the company that built it? Who owns the companies that built the components and the components? What's your second, third, fourth, fifth party risk? So that's another big area of concern that we have to pay attention to, is what's going on with this equipment before we ever touch it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That is such a big deal. I need to connect you and with Kathy Lanier. She is the senior vice president of security, both physical and logical, for the entire NFL.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And you're seeing more of that, right? One of our mutual friends is at PG&E now, and he was in charge of IT, so cybersecurity, and the next thing you know, he's telling me, "Oh, I've got all the physical security too." Right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
those people are bringing those together because they recognize that there's too much risk by not looking at them coherently.
absolutely, absolutely. And when you look, your job and what you have to do is very similar to hers because she has the stadiums, she has the players, she has the owners, and they are very federated, as most federal agencies are as
Yep.
well, because each one of the business units or the teams have their own budgets and they could do whatever the heck they want with them.
Hmm.
and,
Hmm.
and sometimes they let her know that.
Yep.
Um, and
Yep.
so it's very similar to what you're doing with all the things that you're responsible for.
It is. It is very much so. And looking at those things as system is hugely important.
Yes, yes. So you mentioned DevSecOps. Why is DevSecOps and cyber physical system security increasing in importance? Just expand on what you were saying.
Yeah, so I think, so the challenge with DevSec, or the challenge with development, right? Let's go back and, we'll go back to 2012, 13 when we started talking about this problem, and our poor colleague who was at HHS at the time got dragged up in front of Congress. And poor Frank Bateman, everybody tells the story on him now about how he's responsible for Tara, right? Because
Yeah,
he
yeah,
didn't know what was going on in CMS because the government is federated.
right.
So, what we were doing at that point though was waterfall. And so they're trying to build healthcare.gov in this much time with a
Hmm.
waterfall process that takes this long. So they were toast already, right? Just from their approach. So the point, we've got it. We realized we had to move away from waterfall, and so we started doing rapid development. Right? We
Hmm.
started doing agile, whatever you want to call it, Scrum. There's lots of things, but rapid development, incremental development, and most importantly, being adaptive, looking at the customer experience, looking at the results, and changing and building the MVP. So great, we started doing that, and we realized that if we couldn't deploy it to operations quickly, that was pointless. So then we said we got to do DevOps. And then we realized that we were deploying to operations, but security was going, no, 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 no. You can't, And then they were taking like 6 months to actually let you do. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
DevSecops is the culmination of I can do development fast and I can do operations fast and I have to do security fast to do all those things.
Hmm.
And to do security fast, really what you have to have is a platform. Because you have to inherit most of your controls from something else. Because otherwise, you're going to lose that battle. You're never going to go fast in security unless you're inheriting the vast majority of your controls.
Hmm.
So, so the point with DevSecOps is simply if you want to go really fast, you're going to have to build a platform. You're going to have most of your controls in place and be able to inherit 95% of those controls and only test for a small number of them to go into operations.
Hmm.
And so from that standpoint, that's going to drive how we behave in our development of new products and processes
Yeah.
across the government. And we do need to apply that rationale to looking at OT systems. It's not going to be the same because you're not building an OT system we're not necessarily building an OT system on your low-code platform. But you should be able to look and say, I can validate this sensor, for example, right? I can make sure that I know how this sensor operates and I know what is required to test the sensor and make sure that it's functional and it's not been tampered with. And then I
Hmm.
should have a process where I can then quickly, after I get the first sensor, I can deploy the next 10,000 of those sensors very quickly. So you can apply those lessons from software development DevSecOps to a physical system, which is sort of part of the point of that book was that, a lot of it was about manufacturing and hardware, and a lot of those principles come from software development and from rapid
Right.
software development. And in fact, there's
Yeah.
a concept called rapid learning cycles, which is the physical system version of agile development. It's how do you do agile in a physical system, because it's not the same, because I can't build a car and then say, oh no, wait, tear it down and build another one, right? So it's a different process, but it's
Yeah.
built on the same principles.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And how do we get there? I mean, how do we get to this point where we have DevSecOps and people are riding security along with the development, and then by the time you get to HEO, it's just a checkbox because
Yeah.
you've done everything along the way.
So, that is an absolutely great question. That's sort of, when people say, well, what do you want to do this time around the government? I'm like, that's the problem I want to fix. I have small aspirations. We need to be able to scale that, right? Because what happened was after we had this epiphany that we needed to be agile, we then created pockets of innovation and pockets of agility, and we need to build the ability to scale that out across departments and agencies, and hopefully across government. There's some, I would say the one glimmer I've seen is the Air Force's Kessel Run project. Is a
Mm,
glimmer of that.
yeah. Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and they've done that by building this pipeline where it's like, you want to use our tool set, it's easy. You want to go do your own thing, it's hard. And so driving people into their pipeline. And so one of the things we're doing at DOE, as I mentioned in my remarks, is we're building a playbook. So, just like the digital services playbook, we're
Hmm.
building out a playbook
Hmm.
for how do you scale innovation? What are the plays you need? What are the things you need in place? You need that no code, low code platform. You need that rapid ATO so that you know
Yeah.
which controls are there and which are inherited and which you need to test for. You need
Hmm.
the procurement processes that'll support that. So we're going to build out that playbook, and obviously that'll be available to everybody to figure out how to drive this across
Yeah.
government more broadly.
Great. I can't wait to see it.
Nor can I.
So we talked about a lot of things, Anne. So let's talk about some of the things that the necessary skills and capabilities for digital transformation. In the book, you mentioned leadership, soft skills, and technical skills.
Mhm.
How do we recruit for those kinds of people? What kinds of people are we I mean, I read it, so I know it's in here, but could you share with our
Well,
listening audience, what are some of the things that you and your team who put this book together recommend in those three areas?
so it's not a lot about recruiting for those people. It's about building an organization and growing those people to a great extent. So, um, you have to create an environment um, that is going to create the results you want to achieve. So that means creating a culture where it's a learning organization, where people are willing to take risks, where people have a bias towards action. There's a number of things, and I can't tell you all of them off the top of my head, but it's this environment that is basically designed to foster innovation and lead change. And so what you have to do is you have to figure out where your organization is now, where you need to be, and then you chart your path to get there. The example from when I was at Santa Clara is we had a very sort of structured, staid, unionized environment where people weren't used to change, and so we had to create an environment where people were used to operating differently. We actually restructured all the jobs, and
Hmm.
one of the key things we did was we created dual ladder so that we could have people stay in technical jobs and not have our best and brightest technical folks move into management to get a promotion, which was something we were really suffering from.
Hmm.
But then we took everybody through a year-long training, and it was, how to have effective meetings, how to have open conversations, how to lead and develop people, how to understand emotional intelligence, right? So
Hmm.
really basic things, but it built this shared foundation. So we had this share. So there's one model that's the 5 chairs. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's a 5-chair model, and each chair is a
Yeah.
different color. So everyone went through the 5 chairs training, and then they could have a conversation about the 5 chairs, right? Oh, it looks like he's in the red chair today, right? And it meant something to everybody, right? So
Hmm.
that's it's creating that shared culture and environment where everybody knows sort of the rules of engagement and how we want to play together, and that is one that is designed to create the opportunity to create risks or to take risks and to make change happen and to move fast. And then management leadership has to model those behaviors, right? For example, if you're going to tell people, I want you to take risks, you can't then shut down the first person who takes a risk or who
Hmm.
fails, right? What has to happen is that, what I would tell people is, look, take a risk. You need to make sure your management supports you, that it's a smart risk, not a silly risk, right? And then you go do that, and then management's gonna have your back. And so the first time someone fails, you have to stand up and say, "Yep, I own that." Not, "Oh yeah, they screwed up back there, not me." And I would tell people at EPA, I just haven't had this conversation at DOE, but I would tell people at EPA, look, I don't have any problem if you spend $500,000 and the system doesn't go well and someone at the Hill calls me up to explain myself, which they won't for $500,000. But if you spend $50 million
Yeah.
and then you fail, then I am going up the Hill and I'm going to be mad because we shouldn't have spent $50 million and failed. So it's creating that environment in which people can feel like they're supported and can go fast, and they can count on their colleagues to be in that same mindset, because nothing's more frustrating than trying to go fast, having the guy at the next desk going, next week maybe, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's that. It's innovation is 99% culture and 1% technology, right? That's the bottom line.
That's true. That is very, very true. So how do we get back to, because back in the old days, there used to be people loved doing pilots and or proof of concepts, but now they just, go off and do a procurement and keep their fingers crossed that it works.
Well, and we need to get, that's the whole thing we've been trying to get away from since like 2013, right? Is let's not
Yeah.
do that anymore. And so one of the things is to get yourself a vehicle that allows you to do work without a monolithic contract. Right? So that's the very first thing I go in and say is, look, we need to find a way not to issue a monolithic contract to develop this thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? We need to figure out how to have a contract where I can buy a bunch of sprints off that contract,
Yeah.
and that I can then create my proof of concept, my MVP, test it out, deliver it. And I will actually say that, I arrived at DOE and was very pleased to say we had people doing that. Right? We have a large contract called CBOS, and we have resources available on CBOS, and our team can use those resources to build proofs of concept for other parts of the organization, because
Hmm.
we don't own systems, right? We don't own the demand for the system. Obviously, we own systems.
Yeah.
We don't have the
Yeah.
demand for the system. So they did that, for example, for Justice 40, for the Justice 40 dashboard for DOE, right? They bought sprints off of the contract that we have with one of our providers on CBOS. I don't remember which one. Bought those sprints, built that MVP, showed it to the owners, made changes. And so that's what we need to do. We need to create the vehicles from a contract standpoint, and the
Mm-hmm.
processes.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at CPIC here, which I know is changing and going away, but processes that enable us to deliver projects quickly too, and not have a dashboard that says, well, this is how your project should be designed. And
Yeah.
when it takes
Yeah.
2 years to re-baseline a project in CPIC, it's sort of hard to be agile, right? So
Exactly.
fixing
Yeah.
those sorts of things is hugely important for our success. And I see the whole government doing that. I mean, OMB, like I said, is getting rid of the old CPIC and moving on to something else.
Yes.
We're seeing more and more of these contracts in place that allow us to work with lots of vendors. There's CBOS doesn't leave, doesn't make it harder for people to be part of our system. It simply means that once it's in place, it's easy to buy things because we've got a competitive environment with a bunch of vendors on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so all those things help make it easier. And then you start talking about those low code platforms, right? And driving people,
Yeah.
please don't build something from the ground up, right? Go build something on the low code platform. I mean, for years I've been saying, what do we have? Use what we have. If
Yes.
you don't have
Yeah.
something, go look for commercial off the shelf. Go look for a service, a software as a service. Don't have that, look for a commercial off shelf software box.
Mm-hmm.
Don't
Mm-hmm.
have that, let's go to our low code platform. There should, by the time you get to number 5, you should have very few things where you're going and building something from scratch. But we still have a lot of people who want to go build something. And I appreciate that they're engineers and technologists and they want to build stuff, but they got to be stewards of taxpayer money, and they've got to work up that hierarchy, not down that hierarchy.
Right, right. And I think, Ann, with the infrastructure bill and the Build Better Back uh, initiatives, I think that's a critical component because they're talking about moving fast,
Mm-hmm.
moving
Yeah.
securely, and
Yep.
providing services that the American public needs and wants. And
Mm-hmm.
they're going to have to do that because you can't build from scratch with the
No.
pace of innovation that they want to institute over the next 2 years.
Well, and we absolutely have an imperative, right? We not only have infrastructure in this country that is crumbling, that needs to be repaired, but we have a climate crisis, right? And
Yeah.
so we can't spend years and years building technology to figure that out. We need to implement the technology that we know and we have now, and
Hmm.
focus on creating the new technologies we don't have, and doing that fast. So yes, the government
Yeah.
needs to figure out how to be agile across the board,
Hmm.
so that we can deal with the real issues we have right now.
Think, build, and operate.
That's right. That's right.
Now, as leaders, looking towards 2022 and their innovation initiatives, what recommendations do you have to balance innovation and compliance?
Yeah. So that's a great um, challenge, right? And I think that we also have this challenge between risk and compliance,
Mm-hmm.
because it's very easy in both cases to get so focused on checking the boxes of the executive order, of the law that created your job, of whatever, that you forget that you're actually trying to deliver something. And I think the government has made huge strides in our security programs, our cybersecurity programs,
Hmm.
over the last, between the time I left the government in 2017 and came back in 2021. I saw a marked difference that we were much more risk-based and much less compliance-based. And so with the EO at DOE, and I think other places too, we've been really focused on, we're going to stay risk-based. We can't do all this right now anyway. It's not enough
Right.
money. So we're going to do the things that address our biggest risks first. So with innovation, the challenge is the same, which is, I got a bunch of stuff you're going to tell me I have to do. I probably can't do all of them. So which of the things that I'm gonna that you want me to comply with are going to most support my innovation efforts or not
Hmm.
squash them? And I'm going to focus on those things first, right? So if I look at the CDO Act, right,
Hmm.
I could probably pick off some things there that really help me and some things there that are just pushing paper. So I'm going to focus on those things that really help me be better with data first.
Yeah.
And if I can do them all, that's great, right? I have no objection to doing them all. But if I can only do so many of them, I'm going to pick those things that make me more secure or make me more innovative first, and then get
Yeah.
to the things that really don't, that really are just checking the box
Hmm.
later.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
we all want to follow the rules. I mean, people who work in government tend to be good rule followers for the most part. And part of my job is to sort of encourage people to think about things other than just following the rules, but how we can really make that a win-win. Follow the rules and be as effective as possible.
Because we all know that innovation is not linear,
No,
right?
it's very much not. Yes.
So, I know people do like that linear format, but if you're going to be innovative and you're going to get to where you need to go quickly, you need to figure out, like you said, what are areas that you can, put off on the side, and what are areas where you can change the culture so that you can move faster.
Yes, absolutely. That's why I go back to the comment I made in remarks. There are some times when an executive order or an audit report is your friend, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you can take that and go, oh, look, I now have a mandate to go do something I wanted to do anyway.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
you can call that never wasting a good crisis or whatever you want, but take the opportunity to use those things to help you make progress rather
Yeah.
than just looking at, oh my God, look, there's all this work that I've got to do and no money for it.
That's it's the sky is falling, the sky is falling, running
Yes,
around like that.
we can all be chicken little, or we can figure out how to make the best.
Exactly. So it, you mentioned, when you left, and then when you came back, I think one of the best things about being an appointee is you have a limited time. You
That's right.
know, you know your start time, you know your end time, proposed end time,
Mhm.
and you know what you have to get done. So you do it makes you prioritize.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Assuming I don't make anybody too mad, right? I've got till January 20th, 2025, and maybe longer,
Yeah.
maybe not. When I was in Obama's second term, so I knew exactly when I was done that time. This time's a little more questionable, but yeah. And I've said this many times, is that as appointees, we're running a sprint and our staff are running a marathon.
Right.
And so we need to be able to balance the I'm in a hurry to get a bunch of stuff done with these folks are going to be, we're here and they're going to be here,
Hmm.
and you need to not kill them.
Yeah.
And because it doesn't help if they all quit because you've overworked them. Um, so
True.
yeah, that limited amount of time really clarifies priorities. It makes you think about what you really truly want to accomplish and focus
Hmm.
on those things. Um, and I encourage people. I cannot remember who to credit for this, but someone once told me, if your calendar is not serving your needs, blow it up. Look at what you're doing.
Mm.
Look at how you're spending your time.
Hmm.
And if that is not getting you where you're supposed to be going, then stop doing that and do something else with your time. There's only, whether you're an appointee or not, you only have so much
Yeah.
time.
Yes.
And as we are not as young as we used to be, our careers are not that much. There's not that much career out in front of us anymore either. So what do you want to get done?
Yeah.
And get after it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, we worked with some of the best people in the career folks.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing gets done without them. And
Absolutely.
so it's definitely better to have them on your side and marching along with you instead of, the thing that
Oh,
she's
yeah.
crazy or he's
Well,
crazy.
we all know that if you don't have the career path on your staff on your side, they can wait you out.
Yeah.
I thankfully have not had that experience, but I have
Yes.
seen that in action. Is that it's like,
Yes. Yes.
yeah, okay, I'll be here.
Exactly. And that,
But
that just
that's
that
not. To be really clear, that's not what career staff want to do. They want to do
absolutely.
great work, and
That's right.
so they want to move forward, and we want to give them great work to do, so they don't feel like they have to wait us out.
Absolutely. Catherine, do we have any questions for Anne?
No, ma'am. We do not have any audience questions at this time.
Okay. Well, I will thank Anne very much for being our guest today. A lot of great ideas on transformation and building the team around you that you're going to work with going forward. We look forward to seeing how things are going to go in the next few years with the Department of Energy and some of the innovative solutions that you will be implementing. I thank for our sponsors, DLT, for being able to co-sponsor with us on this series, our fall briefing. You can get the previous briefings on our digital website. So please feel free to look us up on www.icitech.org. Again, thank you, Anne, and thank you to our listening audience. Have a great day. Live long and prosper.
Thanks, Joyce. Thanks, everybody.